I'm going to show you guys how to make Sicilians and Detroits with New York pizzas. So this is about a 72-hour cold ferment, commercial yeast, instant yeast actually. Can't share the recipe with you, it's not my restaurant, but I will show you how to do this. So there's two ways to make a Sicilian, I would say. Two ways with New York pizza. You can always make a focaccia dough, which is usually a little higher hydration. It's also it's a totally different recipe. This is a very low hydration. It's like comes out to like 54-55%, possibly even lower. I've honestly never done the math, but I can kind of tell by the water content. And you can see it's got some nice fermentation. But I think the best way, in my opinion, is flour. A lot of people would say you gotta do it with oil, but both oil and flour retain water on the outside of dough. So just like making a pizza, where I would go like that and make an outer crust and push the air to the outside, I kind of do that, but I just want to like slightly degas it almost completely. And then I'm going to end up stretching it like I would stretch a pizza, but instead of having my hands a little farther inside the crust, I'm going to have them kind of out, almost touching the table. I'm going to stretch. And I got something that's got a little more dough in the middle and it's a little thinner on the outside. So I'm going to let that rest a little bit. I'm going to grab my Sicilian pans, and I'll show you how that will go in a Sicilian. So I'm just going to leave this here actually to sit and rest and relax, because since I just agitated it and moved it, it'll want to spring back to itself if you see. But if I let it rest, it'll behave a lot more. So I'm going to do that. And then right here, I'm going to do the oil method. So I got another one of these. It's a 32-ounce dough. By the way, it's after closing at the restaurant, and I'm kind of just doing the best I can here. But here's another one. It's a nice dough from the same batch, 72 hours. I get it out. And first, before I use oil with this, I like to kind of slap it on the table and just press it out a little bit, pick it up, press it out a little more, keep doing that. And I want to really focus on the outside more than the inside, because the inside will kind of stretch itself. So I'm going to let that one sit, and we'll do a shootout and see what's better in the morning when I go to cook it off. Alright, so I got 3, and it's always FIFO, so I'm going to flip them like that. So this will be the first one I use. This guy I'm going to put some oil on, a good bit of oil, just like it's focaccia. Now let's relax for a little bit. And I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the same thing to this side. And I'm just going to move it over to this back table over here. By the way, these are 32-ounce doughs, so they're 2 pounds each. I'm going to do the same thing. wicking on the outside. And I'm also using gravity. Gravity does a lot. But since I would use a 15-ounce dough ball, and this is a 17-ounce dough ball, I'm just going to eyeball it, but I'm going to cut off about 2 ounces. I don't know, I turned away, you might not have heard that, but I'm going to cut off about 2 ounces, and I'm going to try to make it square. I'll let that relax for a sec. I'm going to hit it with oil just like the other one. Flip it over. And I'm going to set this back on the other table as well. Alright, so these are pretty seasoned Detroit pans, as you can see, or Sicilian pans, I'm sorry. So I'm just going to spray them. That's really all it needs. I'll just go one by one just to show you. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab the corners like that, let it hang. And this motion, I'm just moving my arms forward and back, helps stretch it a lot. Turn it over, grab these corners, and do the same thing. So, this, believe it or not, is the smooth side that was on the top of the dough. That's what I want to be on top, just like going from rolling dough to balling dough. I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to set it similar to launching a pizza. And you want to have the corners out, at first at least. And the better you do at dropping it like that, the better you're going to do, because you want an even dough all the way across for the most part to make it proof correctly. I like to give it a little crust along the side of the pan. Something like that. And that's good to put aside. So I'm going to spray the top to be safe. Pop little bubbles. I'm going to put it out of the way. So all I did was flour both sides of the dough. Smooth side up, the side that was up in the beginning. If you see, my left hand is staying still, my right hand is stretching. That's kind of the method for table stretching. Like I said, I'm doing 3 of each with flour, 3 Sicilians, 3 Detroits with flour, like this. And when I slap it and move it, all that flour that I put on, some of it gets massaged into the dough, but a lot of it ends up right back on the table there. I usually slap some of that flour back off, and I pop it back on my pile. So, I got my pile, I rotate, and now my next move will be the oiled Sicilian. I'm gonna get these out of my way. So this is all oil, once again. And when I do this, I like to use oil. I treat it like it's focaccia for the most part. It's a ton of oil. And once again, smooth side up. And when I go to wrap these and enclose them, I'm really gonna make sure those corners are good. And next, I'm using Lloyd's pans. They're all nice and seasoned. And I'm gonna do the Detroits. I'm gonna start with the oiled one. I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of oil. So it's almost that shape. If you see the size of that, it's pretty equal to that. So I'm just going to gently plop it in there. And I want to get out to the corners once again. So it looks something like that. And that'll proof, all of these are going to proof overnight, so I'm going to have to get back to it in the morning. So the rest now the floured ones I usually just spray. So now, if you remember, these are 17 ounces and I need them to be 15, so I'm just going to cut off some there, make it square. Total about 2 ounces of dough. And let gravity do the work a little bit, that's all it really needs. Done. You want to be gentle with it. It is possible to overwork your dough and it won't proof the way you want it to. So since this one's not covered in oil, I'm going to spray it. I need to pull the corners out again. That's a pretty good looking oil Sicilian. Even since I've just done that, the wrap's already stopped a little bit. Corners again. I'm going to give it another spray for the flour ones, just so it doesn't stick to that wrap, basically. I always try to cut just before the end so I can really get under and stick it, because plastic does not like to stick to these pans. And just for shits and giggles, before I put the dough in, I'll show you how I do bread. Basically, I'm going to show you a really easy way to do bread. So basically, you just get your dough, you don't do anything to it. You cut it. If you got a large dough, your 17, 16 ounce dough, just cut it like you would a small pizza into sticks. I usually do 5 of these on a full sheet pan. I'm just going to fit what makes sense here. Which honestly is probably 2 for the fact I'm going to do this overnight. Usually I would actually throw a large box on top of the oven as like a buffer and throw the bread there. It usually takes about 2 hours and it'll be nice and proofed. And it's best to cook it 450 to 475. Usually it takes just under 10 minutes or so. But I'm going to leave that out room temp overnight too, so you can just have a look at it. Alright, so I had a little technical difficulty, but I threw all of the Sicilians right here. They're all proofed up. This is the one with oil on the right. See a minor difference. Haven't got nothing in this oven, but I still need to turn it up. We have them turned to 300 overnight instead of turned off. This one's going to be 475. So over here I got the bread and the Detroits. This is the one with oil on the right over here. So I'll come back to you when they're done. Alright, so it looks like the bread will be coming out last, but all the Sicilians, all the Detroits are coming out right now. So if you see, I just want that light start of browning, and then it's good to go. Because it's our par bake, they're going back in the oven. You can see like this one has a little bit of color to it. That's exactly what I want. Sicilians are perfect now as well. Alright, so these are the Sicilians. See, they're all going back in the oven, so I don't want them too dark. This is the oiled one. This is the oiled Detroit versus floured. So you want them to square up to the sides of the pan, so when you stick cheese on them, it doesn't sink down in a spot like that. So I did pretty good here. Every one of them looks pretty good. But I have a little way to make these have a little more surface area here so the cheese doesn't sink into the bottom. And how I do that is I literally just flip them onto the cooling rack. So the bottom face will be up. And with the Sicilians, I flip these too, but if you see there's things like this where it goes outside the pan, that's not going to fit in our half sheet pan when we go to make it. So I flip them upside down in the pan first and kind of shove this little part back in the pan so it's upside down like that. It also lets the bottom start to dry out, and then I'll transfer it to a cooling tray. Alright, so here are the Detroits flipped back over, so the top's up again. You can see they flattened out, which I like. This is the oiled Detroit. You can see it's a little wetter, I guess you could say, than the other. That's the oiled Sicilian versus a floured Sicilian. I think they're both really good, and they're all nice and flat, as you can see, kinda. So they can be sauced easily. Where this doesn't matter as much because it's going cheese first. That bread looks beautiful. But yeah. Alright, next up is that grandma again. So, this has been sitting that whole time, and I'm going to try to press it out again. And sometimes it takes a little nice flip. Remember, those corners are like your enemies. That I'm very happy with. Now I could let it relax more and really get those corners out. It's just for show. Still gonna sell all these in slice form in the window. But yeah, I said it while I was doing garlic knots, but I'm gonna say it again because I'm doing grandmas now. When you do grandmas, you can par bake them. A lot of people do, but I think they're a lot better when you don't par bake them. Grandmas, I think you should always make on the shell after it's done proofing, and then cook it. I think that comes out to be the best grandma you can make. Alright, so I'm gonna make a Sicilian for the window, and the best way to sauce this, I think, is to pick it up. I'm lefty, and I got that nice heaping ladle of sauce. I like to really get it all the way to the outside. They already got so much dough on this thing. It's really airy, but you don't want it. It's not like a pizza where you want to leave like a ½ inch between the dough and the sauce. I like to really get it all the way out there and smooth it out. This also helps stop the dough from browning too much. And then I'm going to throw it just like this in the oven. Here I got my grandma. I'm gonna just do the same thing pretty much. This is the oiled grandma, and I just did the oiled Sicilian. So I'm gonna give it one last push to the corners. It's gonna be a nice thin grandma. But I'm gonna do a classic, traditional grandma, just mozzarella. I'm doing basically the opposite of a Sicilian, because Sicilian I throw the sauce first. Once it's nice and steaming, I'm going to throw the cheese on. Here, I'm going to throw cheese down, and once it's melted and not so stringy, I can add the sauce and let it finish its way through. And once again, I want to get the cheese all the way out to the outside. Not quite like a Detroit, but don't show too much crust. Give your corners one last little tap, rectangle. With that. And if you have a nice thin pan, you shouldn't need to do too much to the Detroit either. So I pop this on, and if you see now that it's got flattened a little bit, just a little bit, it goes all the way to the edges. It does, if you saw before, there was a little gap, but once you turn it upside down and flip it and give it more surface area, there's less room for the cheese to fall through the crack. So now, I'm do something very similar. I'm going to throw the cheese. I go just to the outside like this, and I really get it out there because I want that nice, pretty Detroit cheese crown. Now, I'm not using Wisconsin brick cheese like they do in Detroit. I'm using mozzarella because I'm in a New York pizza place, but we sell Detroit pizza. And I don't throw too much cheese on the actual top layer, but I throw a good bit to the outside. And then I throw Asiago. I should say we throw Asiago here. And I'm going to do our, I don't even remember the name of it, haymaker, which is pepperoni. And then when it comes out, it's going to get, I think I'm going to sub pesto for basil today. No, there's too many sauces. So I'm going to do, yeah, so it gets basil, bacon jam, ricotta, and marinara. I might not do that because the cook's not even here for the mozzarella yet, or marinara. I'm just gonna make a, I'm gonna do pepperoni and hot honey. Red hot, red hot. Whenever I'm putting sauce on top of something, I try not to do it straight out of the ladle. I like to do it out of a cup like this. And then you pinch it and you can pour it. Alright. Alright, so I'm probably going to run out of battery on my camera here today. But you see I pulled this out of the oven. Nice and steamy. Just got some of the water out of that sauce, and the hot sauce will help melt this cheese. Actually, you might be like, oh, it's not going to melt if you throw it on so late, but when it's this much steam, it will definitely cook the cheese. I used to be the same way. I try to throw them on first and wonder why my cheese looks more stringy than my boss when he did it this way, and he kind of explained it to me that way, that steam does a lot more than dry heat. And so there still is some water in that sauce, but now it's reserved just for the cheese. And I'm going to throw this right back in. And this is our Detroit. Since marinara is not here just yet, until our cook heats it up, I'm going to just use pizza sauce, which is perfectly okay. Same thing with this grandma. It's always good to hit bubbles while they're still cooking. When you pull something out halfway through like this, you want to be careful because it can deflate. That's good. I'm going to throw some extra virgin olive oil in there too. And throw that bad boy back.